Good afternoon. Yahya Sinwar's assassination marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Sinwar's death not only dismantles Hamas's leadership amid a backdrop of uncertainty, but also raises critical questions about the future of military operations and the fate of detainees. The implications of this event ripple far beyond Gaza, potentially reshaping the dynamics of power within Hamas and altering Israel's approach to ceasefire negotiations. As we explore the scenarios unfolding after Sinwar's demise, we delve into how this assassination could redefine the conflict, influence military strategies, and impact the lives of countless Palestinians caught in this brutal struggle. Welcome to In Depth. The war in Gaza continues to devastate civilians, with an Israeli airstrike recently killing at least 28 people in a school. Yahya Sinwar's assassination may renew hopes for a ceasefire, but Israeli officials, including opposition politician Benny Gantz, indicate a commitment to ongoing military operations. The Guardian reports that the potential successors to Sinwar in Hamas include his brother Mohammed, Khalil al-Yahya, and Khalid Mashal. Global leaders, including President Biden, urge Israel to negotiate a ceasefire, while Iran and Hezbollah call for resistance. Pressure is mounting within Israel for the return of the detainees, but the path to peace remains unclear, as military operations are expected to continue. Analysts suggest that Sinwar's death may not herald an end to violence, leaving the future political landscape in Gaza uncertain. In the wake of Yahya Sinwar's assassination, the geopolitical landscape surrounding Gaza has entered a new chapter and is a significant turning point in the ongoing conflict. In today's interview, we will delve into the pressing issues with Dr. Mohammed Osman, a political researcher from Cairo, and Ratiba El-Nadsha, a researcher in Israeli affairs from occupied Jerusalem. Together, they will explore the implications of Sinwar's death, including how it may reshape Hamas's strategy and influence the broader regional dynamics. Join us as we navigate this complex and evolving situation. Welcome to you both. Dr. Osman, I'd like to start with you. Could you provide some of the background, the details, set the scene for us surrounding Yahya Sinwar's assassination, and what do you think the immediate implications might be for Hamas?
Thank you, Mark, for having me. Of course, the assassination of Yahya Sinwar, basically the second decapitation of Hamas as a resistance organization and as an organized group within the Gaza Strip, and the biggest, one of the biggest and most influential Palestinian factions, of course, leaves a severe impact on the organizational structure and the impact of this organization on the ground, whether politically or militarily. Of course, what we know so far about the assassination of Mr. Sinwar, about the details, and about, of course, nothing is clear yet. We have a single narrative, which is the Israeli narrative, and it goes something like this. An Israeli patrol encountered in Rafah, in southern Gaza, in the Tal al-Sultan area, 3 Hamas members or Hamas armed gunmen. They chased them into a house. Two of them fled into one house. One of them fled into the other house. They shelled both houses with tanks. And coincidentally, when they walked into one of them, they found Mr. Sinwar's body. So what we get from this narrative or from this story is that Mr. Sinwar was found by accidentally. They basically stumbled on him and they killed him inadvertently, basically, as if they were just dealing with any other Hamas gunman in the Gaza Strip. So that's the Israeli narrative. That means that they had no intel about his location. That means that they did not that this was not big one special ops operation that they will make a movie about someday, or something that is synonymous or reminiscent of what happened to Hezbollah's leadership recently. They just stumbled upon it. But of course, it is a huge accomplishment on the Israeli side. I have to be frank about this. And it does cause a huge blow to the morale of the Palestinian resistance fighters at large in the Gaza Strip.
Okay, well, that's a fascinating account there, Doctor. And to you, Ms. El Natsha, thank you for being on the program with us. How significant is Sinwar's assassination for Israel's ongoing conflict with Hamas, do you think?
I think that the issue, it's not about Yahya Sinwar. And even the goals that Netanyahu mentioned as the goal of this operation, military operation in Gaza, is to set free the Israeli hostages and to eliminate Hamas. And I think he is not seeking any of these goals. Because of that, he wasn't satisfied from the image that Yahya Sinwar was killed in it. And he said clear that the killing of Yahya Sinwar will not end these operations, and he will continue to achieve his goal, that it seems to be something else not mentioned yet, to maybe to reoccupy Gaza Strip or other issues that he have in mind, but not to eliminate Yahya Sinwar or Hamas. And I think that Hamas didn't depend on one person. So the killing of Yahya Sinwar will not change the structure of Hamas. As we witnessed before, the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, Saleh al-Aruri. Before that, we have Ahmed Yassin, Rantisi, and other people, other leaders in Hamas. I think that the structure of Hamas, it's not depending on one person. And if we remember, few months ago, when Ismail Haniyeh was killed, and they give Yahya Sinwar to be the head of the political bureau of Hamas, at first he refused because he was under these attacks. And I think because of that, Yahya Sinwar was very clever and gave a lot of missions to other people around him, not just to have these centrally controlled by him. And by these facts, I think that nothing will be changed, neither on the structure of Hamas, nor on the way of fighting on earth or on land, or on the negotiation path according to the killing of Yahya Sinwar.
Okay, and Dr. Osman, do you see a change in military operations? Will we see a change in military operations in Gaza as a result of Sinwar's death?
No, I don't think so. I think the military operations that the Israelis are conducting in the entirety of the Gaza Strip, whether in the south or in the north, will proceed as is, basically, because as my honorable colleague, the other speaker, said, that the assassination of Sinwar will not necessarily change anything on the ground. But I might add something that might be a bit different, and that she might disagree with me with, because actually Hamas over the past year has been severely weakened by the Israeli strikes and the Israeli acts of aggression in Gaza. And it's actually phenomenal and admirable, actually, that Hamas has managed to survive for this long and to withstand such an Israeli onslaught, one of the most advanced militaries in the world, facing an armed resistance group completely outgunning them technologically and in terms of manpower and military hardware and everything, and training and everything, and funding and international support. However, that does not really, as much as noble as that is, it does not change the reality on the ground. Hamas's capacities and Hamas's ability to carry out attacks, large-scale attacks on Israeli forces, have been backscaled. They are not diminished entirely, and they will never be diminished entirely, because as long as there is any sort of occupation, there will be resistance to Israeli aggression and Israeli occupation. Let's even imagine that the Israeli officials and the Israeli government's virtual realm of reality, or the alternative reality that they are living in, that they can completely dismantle and liquidate Hamas, which they can, because Hamas is an idea. Another resistance organization will pop up and will carry on the resistance, as long as they are not dealing with the deeply rooted causes of the ongoing crisis and the conflict in occupied Palestine. Nothing will be resolved. But going back to your question, Mark, whether the military operations will change, no, I don't think they will. I do not think they will back down, or that the tenacity of the operations will wind down. Already, the Israelis are carrying out a humongous campaign of ethnic cleansing in the Jabalia area in the outmost northern part of Gaza, and they basically aim to cleanse the northern part of Gaza from the remaining 300,000 Palestinians, killing hundreds of people in the process, and using starvation and hunger as a weapon against the civilian population of northern Gaza. I think the Israelis will of course, proceed with their genocidal endeavors, and unfortunately, nothing will stop them, at least until we have a new U.S. administration. That gives us about 3 months. I don't think the United States right now is in any position to actually exert any actual pressure on the Israeli government, which contains many radical elements. Some of them are complete lunatics, excuse my expression. And on the other hand, Netanyahu is taking full advantage of the unique opportunity that he has been offered to do what he believes he can achieve, which is liquidating what he calls, what we might call the quote-unquote axis of resistance. That's why he's decimating Gaza. That's why he's opening a new front, or he already opened a new major front in Lebanon.
Okay, and Ms. Al-Nadsha, feel free to comment on what Dr. Osman was saying there, if you would like. But also, I'll add this in. Netanyahu has described this event as the beginning of the end. Do you think that's true? And what do you think he means by that?
Actually, I don't know what the end that Netanyahu means look like, because for me, I think that Netanyahu didn't has a plan for the second day of the war in Gaza Strip yet, and he is trying to find out what he is going to do in Gaza Strip, and he is stuck in this circle for a very long time. He can't decide if he will make like a whole control in Gaza Strip by reoccupying Gaza Strip, or maybe he will have like a kind of authority inside Gaza with a relation with the Israeli military forces, or what kind of these options he will do. So without having a clear plan for the next day, I think he has no limited time, or limited time for the end, or what is the end he is seeking in this time. We don't know what kind of victory he is seeking as well, to say that he is very near to the end. So I think that the experience says, and if they learn from the history, that associating a leader in the Palestinian Liberation Movement, or one of the parties, will never change the equation. And by that, I don't think that the end is very soon, unless that Netanyahu have a plan or a clear vision about that end, and he want to mention it finally for at first his cabinet and for the world, and then we can discuss if the end is near, or or begin, or near or not yet. Till now, I think that we have like a lot of opening options. The only clear thing for the end is the end that the Palestinian people seek. It's the liberation of their lands, stopping these attacks, ceasefires right now, and to have like a Palestinian authority on Gaza Strip. And in the other side, we didn't have any other plans that it's clear for anyone to talk about the end or the next day of this war. And I think that we have hundreds of Yahya Sinwar in the Palestinian people, among the Palestinian people. So I think he is facing a very, very long resist. It started more than 8 decades and will continue till we got our liberation.
And Dr. Osman, does Sinwar's assassination affect the situation for detainees, like when it comes to potential negotiations or exchanges?
Of course, it does put the fate of the detainees in Gaza in complete jeopardy, but that's not as if their fate wasn't in complete jeopardy to begin with, for one simple reason. About 103 detainees or captives remain in the Gaza Strip within the custody of the Palestinian resistance, including Hamas. About 50 of those have died already reportedly, and most of them have died because of Israeli mass bombardment and indiscriminate bombardment and indiscriminate fire, basically. So they died with Israeli fire. So I do not see why the Israeli government would really be so keen on preserving the lives of the remaining 50 or 70. The estimates vary according to various sources. But coming back to that, the assassination of Sinwar, of course, it actually complicates the prospects, the already very weak and diminished prospects of reaching a detainee exchange deal, which, of course, is tied directly to a ceasefire deal, whether a permanent ceasefire or a temporary ceasefire. So it complicates that, and it makes it unattainable, unfortunately, at the moment. And at the same time, many of the enraged members of the resistance who might go rogue, basically, and might even execute some of those detainees. So actually, by assassinating Sinwar and by basically sabotaging once again the political process, just like when they did that when the Israelis, when they assassinated Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. Right now, what they are doing is endangering their own citizens. So unfortunately, I do not find the possibility of a ceasefire deal and an exchange deal something that we can see in the foreseeable future. And also, however, on the other hand, on the other war aims that Netanyahu claims to be pursuing, the assassination of Sinwar, unfortunately, was one of those war aims, and the liquidation of most of the leadership of Hamas. And this has already happened because we have seen the assassination of Sinwar, before that the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, and even the assassination of other prominent field commanders like Marwan Isa, and even allegedly Muhammad al-Dif. So now we do not know even what will the new command structure in Gaza of Hamas will look like. Probably they have second line leadership who will come to the first line of leadership and assume responsibility. But I do not think that they will reveal their identity, fearing that they might be targeted as well with assassinations by the Israeli army of occupation, unfortunately. However, I do not see any prospect of a deal, as I told you before, Mark, and I do not see any definitive end to the conflict in Gaza, again, within the near future at least.
And before we dive deeper into our discussion, please both stay with me, Dr. Osman and Ms. El Natsha. Please do stay with us. We're going to come back after a short break where we look at the Israeli assassination of leadership. as you can see there, they've really been taking them out, haven't they? So let's go back to our discussion. Dr. Osman is still with me in Cairo, and Ms. El Natsha, who is in occupied Jerusalem. Thank you very much for staying with us. How does this affect things in Israel, Ms. El Natsha? Will this make any difference to the cabinet, or cabinet of lunatics, as Dr. Osman described Netanyahu's cabinet as? What do you make of this? How's it going down for Israelis and in Israel?
I think for the families of the hostages, yes, it makes difference, and they are very afraid because they have a little hope to return back their maybe family members, and by killing Sinwar, I think that they lost the last light of hope that they have. And this put them in, maybe some of them says that we must put so much pressure on Hamas and to kill more and more leaders. Maybe we will become nearer to our hostages. But the most of them sees that there's no chance left for their family member to be returned back. But in the other side, in the cabinet side, yes, it's the cabinet of lunatic. It's not just lunatic. Just think about criminal issue more than an unhumanitarian issue, more than anything else. And they didn't put the file of the hostages on their priority from the beginning when they activate the Hannibal protocol. That means that they can kill the hostages and anyone who kept these hostages together. So killing the hostages was activated from the first day, and I don't think that it's the real problem for this cabinet. Maybe Galnet tried several times to give some hope to the hostages' families by saying that maybe we will have someone who will negotiate in more logical than Sinwar and can achieve something with him. But I think it's not true, because we hear Khalil Haya in his speech today when he say that any leader will come after Sinwar will not accept something less than what Sinwar was fighting for. So that means that I don't think that the Israeli cabinet will achieve anything by killing Sinwar, and they didn't have any matter in not achieving this anything in this file, and they didn't put it in their priority from the first day of this attack. So I think, yeah, they will take another actions to raise the situation and the attacks and to use more force in Gaza Strip to achieve their goals. And this goal is to kill as much Palestinian as they could and transfer the rest of them. This is the plan. And we heard 3 days ago when they started to talk about establishing new settlements in North Gaza. And that means that the Israeli cabinet feel that they are achieving in their process in reoccupying Gaza and killing more and more Palestinian and eliminate as much Palestinian leaders as they could. So it may become easier for them to achieve their goals.
Okay, and back to you, Dr. Osman. What's Washington making of this? How do the Americans view this particular assassination? And of course, we have a change of government coming up in the next couple of months. What difference will each of the administrations, the new administrations, make to this situation, do you think?
I think it will not be that much of a change for a couple of reasons. First of all, let's see the current administration's reaction to the assassination of Sinwar. Of course, it was a very festive atmosphere. Everyone was welcoming the assassination of Sinwar. President Biden, Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, a little bit less enthusiastically. Defense Secretary Austin Secretary Blinken, the Secretary of State, all of them welcomed the assassination of Sinwar, and all of them also used the same spinning of words that they use always, that this could be an opportunity to reach a deal, as if Sinwar was the obstacle to reaching a deal. So, and of course, that's complete nonsense. However, what we have seen from the Biden administration throughout this war was a trend of saying something and doing completely something else, something that is completely different from what they have been pledging to do. We find them claiming to apply certain pressure on Israel in order for them to not target civilians, in order for them to be more flexible in negotiation, in order for them to agree to a ceasefire. They have failed on all of these fronts, and yet they have not exercised a single tool of pressure that they have historically exercised throughout Israeli-U.S. relations on Israel in order to compel them to adhere to the pressure they claim to be applying on them. So that's what we have seen from the Biden administration, and the Harris administration, potential Harris administration, will be just a continuation of that. Kamala Harris is the vice president, is the number 2 of the Biden administration. She is the excuse me. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Unfortunately, we're going to have to bring things to an end. So if you just briefly finish your point, Doctor.
Just in 10 seconds. However, with Donald Trump, it's much more clear. Donald Trump is staunchly pro-Israel, and he even hinted that Israel should be expanded and does not have enough territory. So I think we will know who we're dealing with in this point. My opinion, it will not make a difference, to be honest.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Osman, a political even researcher, and Ratiba Al-Natsha, a researcher in Israeli affairs. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on the program. That while Sinwar's death may alter dynamics, achieving lasting peace in Gaza remains complex and uncertain, with risks of future further conflict. That brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Stay tuned for more exclusive stories here on Q News. Thanks for watching.